Let's go live. We're going to have a fun thing today. So, we're going to be opening this package here in just a minute. Haven't opened it yet. It's the second round of shipping from TrueTech. It's from TrueTech. I don't actually know what's in here. They didn't tell me. I don't get notified of what's all shipping when, where. I gave a whole wish list of, hey, this is what we need for our workstations within the training center, and this would be my ultimate list, and it got approved. And so as they're getting everything sourced and getting it together, I'm receiving it as well, which is awesome. And I found out in the process that they're actually carrying the Klein megometers in stock now, which is freaking awesome. I had talked to them a while back. I mean, it was a while back about trying to get that in stock and being something they actually carry and can ship. I know they were working on it. I didn't realize that they had actually accomplished that task. So, as another resource we have to being able to get, especially just an entry level megometer or a insulation resistance tester or a megger, whatever you want to call it. Absolutely love that thing. It's the ET600 by Klein. It's not the end. It's not the last megger you'll ever buy, but it is an awesome one. How you doing, everybody? Again, we're going to dive into this box in just a second. We're going to open it up live on camera. Just have some fun with it. I do have an update on last week, the RTAF. We had a high pressure trip. We're going to follow up and actually look at the data trend log as well. That'll be part of us opening things up here. Today we're representing Chilco and Navic. Navic, if you don't know, is actually one of the equipment sponsors for the training center here. Really working out some details with them on expanding. They've already been a partner. We already carry several of their lines, especially like the NRDC 4M. I absolutely love that recovery machine. Anyway, so Navic representing these guys, and then Chilco. Chilco has come alongside us now, and they're going to be working as our parts supplier. So a lot of the parts and equipment and things we're actually going to be putting hands on. They're going to be providing a lot of that stuff going forward. So really, really appreciate these guys and just their partnership and their belief in moving forward. With that, if you're wanting to get your company represented on any of this stuff, feel free, whether it be hats, whether it be shirts. I'd love to wear your stuff. You can send that to my P.O. box. I'll see if I'll post it here in the stream here in a little bit, or I'll just, you can just send me an email at hvactime at hvactimetx.com. You do that, let me know you're going to ship something out. I'll give you I have a P.O. box here in town you can send everything to. That's the best way to get that stuff to me. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into our unboxing. Let's see what we got today. All right, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. There we go. I gotta say, I've really enjoyed this Navic knife. I was very skeptical when they first gave it to me, but since then, I have really, really come to enjoy it. Let's see what they sent us. Microphone out of the way. Oh yeah. Okay. Got some more of the Klein 10-inch. Well, we got all kinds of good stuff. Okay, so we got 3 more of those. So we got 5 workstations, mind you. So, okay, so just bear that in mind. We're trying to fit out 5 full workstations. I've got set up here in the training center. So each station will have its own set of tools, its own equipment. Ideally, I'll have different practice kits already set up as one of the long-term ideas, so that as you go to a station, you can just pick up and start testing, and we can start working through all the training. So as we're unboxing all this, just bear that in mind. That is our goal. All right, so these have been absolutely phenomenal. I love these, the all-purpose pliers with crimper. They're not technically, here, I'll open these up. They're not technically a needle nose, but I have found that I just doing the chiller side, the heavy side stuff, I just rarely ever need a legit needle nose, and these have been absolutely perfect. I actually like a little bit broader tip on them because I've had less issues with them like tearing stuff up. Whereas with the regular needle nose, I've had far like it's just the tip becomes so narrow that it cuts into stuff real easy. Where this broader one doesn't as much. That's just my personal experience. Anyway, so we got a couple of these, and we got another 1/2 inch hose. So that is part of my training, my hands-on class. So we can talk about that more later. But this is the what's the part number on this? Yeah, so the 15872 is the Yellow Jacket 1/2 inch is 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch transfer, and I think technically are these are technically vacuum rated, I believe. They're for sure refrigerant transfer. Yeah, charging hose. I'd have to verify if they're actually vacuum rated now that I think about it. I don't remember. Oh, yeah, good for vacuum. Yep. So, which usually that means they'll pull down to at least 100 microns, close enough for me. So, all right, and then we got this. So, I've recently tried these and have absolutely fallen in love with them. The 15-in-1 ratcheting. So, I had a regular 15-in-1 from Klein for like years and years and years and really, really liked it. I still have it. It's beat the absolute heck. It's missing the end cap. I've had to replace bits, but it's held up amazingly well. And then I found this ratcheting one, so I tried one a while back, and absolutely, actually, I've got it right here. All right, this is the unboxed version of it. Or actually, I'm sorry. This is the only difference between these two. That's right. This one is actually designed to go into your drill. This one's technically not. True Tech does sell the one that does fit in the drill, but I opted to get the ones that don't because I don't plan to use them for that. But anyway, really enjoy these. What else we got? We got more pliers. More pliers. Crescent wrenches. You know, I've gone back and forth on how much I like these, to be honest. I've come to the conclusion, especially this newer style where they're more compact, I really like them. I really, really like them. And this particular one does have it to where it'll connect into the actual drill. So you can put this into a drill and use it as a driver on a drill, or just a 1/4 inch ratchet. Either way, and then you've got the handle. So I think my issue was the early versions, like the really early versions that they had. They weren't perfect. They weren't great. They had some flaws, and ever since they've come out, or they've just improved it overall, I've been far, far happier with these. So anyway, opted to do that, and this is in place of, okay, do I go the multi-tool route, which is what I honestly prefer? That's what I recommend. Like if you come to me as an apprentice and you're asking what tools should I buy, I'm going to recommend a whole loadout of multi-tools to you. It just really cuts down so much. And multi-tools have gotten really, really good nowadays. Like, I get it early on. Honestly, they were far more gimmicky than quality. Now I really feel like we get some very genuine quality out of a lot of these multi-tools. You know, these pliers, as an example, are a perfect example of what I'm talking about. These are just, I've had, man, the first set, I've had the pair I have that I still use to this day for damn near 10 years. Right? And they've just been absolutely kick butt. So my point is, I'm a huge multi-tool guy, and I decided to actually provide the tools that I would personally want you to buy as part of our kit here. And that's what I want you to practice with. All right, so we got a 10-inch spud wrench. So this helps with like flange alignments and stuff. So we're going to have one of these in conjunction with these at each of the stations. So as we're doing different stuff, you can just, again, you get your hands on it. These are extremely, extremely useful, handy. Yeah, like I just they're not your like everyday, but if you're doing a lot of flange work, pipe work, if you're trying to connect, big refrigerant flanges on the compressors and pipes, you're trying to line stuff up, like absolutely awesome. So I highly recommend that if that's not something you're already familiar with. All right, so we got some more of our screwdrivers. What else we got? Oh yeah. So I asked for two of these. So part of what we're going to do is I'm going to do a combination of Fluke, these UEI, which is this the Phoenix? This should be the Phoenix version, I believe. Either way, this UEI meter along with the Flukes and some field piece. I got a couple of different meters. I'm going to stage them between these stations. My point there is just to give more all around experience. And um, like for a Fluke everyday carry, this is a great meter. The 375, right there, uh, awesome meter. I've used it many times. I don't. Many of the technicians I've worked with over the years have also really loved this. I've always has great experience with this. Same thing with this UEI though. This UEI, my beater meter is this meter, right? So that's what I call it. So that's my meter that I don't care if it gets rained on. I don't care if it gets tore up, dropped, thrown in a puddle, whatever. This meter is there to take a beating. It's not meant to be a high precision device. It's meant to be get me in the ballpark, and then when I get into the finer details, I'm getting something like this, or I'm getting something like my bench meter here behind me to come back it up and then go deeper if I need to. Anyway, I want guys to be able to like put hands on various meters, especially whoever's coming in for training. If you don't already have access to a lot of these meters or input from somebody to tell you what to buy, then like I want you to be able to do that. So anyway, that's the whole point of a lot of this. So let's kind of get it all shit up here. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. So huge thank you to True Tech Tools for being such an incredible sponsor and coming in and just providing a lot of what we're going to need to just do all the procedures, the process, everything we got going for the hands-on training we've got coming up. So I do, by the way, I'll just throw it out there real fast. If you're still looking to get into August class, which is going to be here in Fredericksburg at the training facility, that cutoff is going to be here in a couple of weeks. So at the very 1st of August is the cutoff. The class is actually the end of August, but our deadline to get enrolled is beginning of August. I do still have a couple of seats available, so I'd highly encourage you, if you're going to get in that class, now's the time to get moving on that. Otherwise, you just have to miss out and hopefully catch one later in the year. All right, give me 1 second, and then we'll kind of move on. Get all this stuff out the way. Yeah, next, we're going to dive into a follow-up from last week. All right. So, last week we had a question come in about an RTAF. So this is a newer model of Train screw air-cooled chiller. They were having a high-pressure trip. And basically what was happening is, looking at the trend log, which we can see right here, the condenser pressure was just kind of going along fairly steady, and then just bam, just absolutely hauls butt. And it was causing a high pressure trip on circuit 1. And we were talking through it. He was trying to communicate this trend log to us via the chat. Either way, he did end up coming up to a conclusion here. So you can kind of see the pressure curves. This is your EXV line. So a lot of what we were kind of throwing around at the time was, if you didn't see that chat, was potential either condenser fan issues or some kind of staging problem. Now keep in mind, these screw compressors do not have a slide valve. They are fully variable speed only. So the idea that maybe the slide valve was suddenly ramping, he did some testing on the condenser fans initially and wasn't like able to perfectly replicate the issue. So he's digging. We had a lot of ideas we threw around, talked about back and forth. Didn't fully come to a conclusion. So I followed up with him. Now he's over in Berlin doing this work. So shout out to our Germany folks. And had a fascinating conclusion actually come out of this. So let me, yeah, let's draw this so it kind of gives you some context as to what it is he was seeing. Um, so on this particular machine is using a ECM condenser fan motor, so electronically computated motor, electrically computated. So what that means is these motors, if you haven't seen these in the field, they've got a little junction box kind of mounted to the top of them, and as the on inside of the junction box, you're going to have a couple of inputs on this particular one. So we'll have one set of terminals for line voltage coming in. So line voltage feeds in, and then we'll have another set for our reference input. Okay, so this will be our reference, and basically, because these are variable speed fans that is being controlled by typically the head pressure is the main thing that the chiller is looking at. So it's going to monitor head pressure. Many of them will look at ambient as well. If we're above a certain ambient, let's just say 90 degrees Fahrenheit, it's very, very common for the fan control output to just go straight to maximum, which would be 10 volts DC in this particular case. And if it's below that, then what it's going to do is the fans are going to slowly ramp as condenser head pressure builds. And then at that point, once it hits condenser saturation set point, it will fluctuate or modulate the fan speed to maintain that head pressure. Anyway, without getting way too off into the weeds there. So these are the two main things. So we have line voltage coming into each motor, and then each motor has a reference signal. It's an F, by the way. A reference signal indicating at what speed the control panel wants that motor to run at. Now, their particular machine had an additional set of terminals in there that they were using. Now, there's a whole terminal row in there, don't get me wrong, but they were using a enable input. Now, and that was one of the things I was discussing with him separately is, well, that's strange because when I've worked on these in the past, now granted, keep in mind, I'm in central Texas where we have really high heat, very mild to, if you can even call it a winters. Like we don't deal with a lot of extreme cold whatsoever. But he does. So what he figured out is they, as part of the low ambient kit that this chiller was purchased with, which is one of the option kits you can get, he was explaining that they use this enable in order to better control which fans turn off and on with once they get below a certain ambient condition and they go into a low ambient mode, right? So Train is utilizing this enable. Now above a certain ambient, when we're not in low ambient conditions, this is just enabled all the time. And then we're using the reference signal. But that's the strange thing is technically when we're like, even without utilizing the enable, just the reference alone, like if we wanted the fan to turn off, which this does have the ability to feed independent fans, it just reduces the input feed into the reference input of the fan module on top of the fan. So all this is actually happening like at the motor on top of the fan itself on the fan deck. Uh, so it just seemed awfully redundant to use the enable signal anyway. And this was some incredible work on his part. What he noticed was he couldn't find anything through the trend logs, just was not jiving. So he ended up plugging into the condenser fan controller. And when he pulled it up, he noticed that there were some, I think he said rotor block faults. Really strange. So as he got to digging in, what he found was that when one of the motors was having trouble with its ground, I believe. And so whenever it went to, when that particular motor lost its ground connection, and it basically freaked out the enable signal coming in from the main control panel, that ended up causing an issue across the entire fan deck. And it was literally causing the entire fan deck to trip out all at one time. And that's where we saw on this chart that sudden rise right here, where everything's running fine, very smooth, stable. Like you can see right here, everything's very, very stable. And then all of a sudden, just woof, off it goes, right? So that's what he was experiencing, is this enable input was causing that issue. So he had a wonderful solution to this, because it's just really redundant that it exists. Like from a theory perspective, we agree and understand where Train was like trying to come from with doing it this way, but reality is we have full reference control. We can slow those fans way the hell down. And ultimately, anyway, what he did is he pulled the enable out off of the bus, and he locked it to he reconfigured the controller to where it was enable on all the time, and it just completely eliminated that feature, and made it to where it would strictly run off of the reference. And at that point, when he had a fan failure or something like that, or was able to simulate it, it didn't cause the entire fan deck to go down like it was when this enable signal was having a failure or a fault. And that's partially why it was so intermittent as well, because he wasn't able to replicate it, but it was still happening pretty consistently from the way he described it. Let's see. So he disabled that, reprogrammed the controller. Oh, I brought up the point of, okay, well, because they were using this in the first place, like the standard package doesn't have this extra enable point. Is that going to cause an issue for him when he redid a power cycle? He came back and said, no, they actually did that test. So after they disabled and pulled the enable output from the controller off the bus and just eliminated that altogether, they were able to fully power cycle the machine, bring everything back up, and basically the fans function like every other machine that didn't have that kit would do. It just ran off the reference, everything was good to go. So ultimately, that was the problem, and the solution was a grounding issue at the fan, causing this the enable input to basically freak out, which was then faulting the entire fan deck and causing it to shut down mid operation, which then caused pressures to spike suddenly. Everything trips out. We shut down. So, yeah, that was the ultimate outcome. Really appreciate and excellent job out there, Marco. That was some serious work, and very proud to kind of see that kind of stuff coming through. So good to see everybody. Hope you're enjoying the your week so far. Mine's going pretty well. We're doing an evening stream. I would love to get some feedback on what do you think about the evening stream? Is this more convenient, better, worse? Do you prefer the regular day stream? I just any kind of thing. This is something that we've talked about. Um, I've had requests to try to do things more in the evening like this. I do want to be cautious because there is like Chris Stevenson with um, holy crow, I just blanked on his channel name. Wow, what is his channel name? I gotta look it up now. I'm sorry, Chris. I completely blanked on that name. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna fix that. What is? I can't believe I did that. Me and Chris have. You can send me a dirty text later, bud. HVACR videos. Why did I not remember that? HVA. So he starts his stream at 7 p.m. my time, which is like 2 hours from now, which is I think 5 p.m. his time. Anyway, point is, just don't want to overlap there and like cause issues. I just whatever your thoughts are, feel free to throw them out there. Getting into So, by the way, just the way this works, if you haven't been a part of the streams like this, you're welcome to throw the questions. Yes, this is like my specialty and background. All the stuff is chiller systems related. Even if you've got more basic questions, feel free to throw them out there. If I don't have a proper answer, I'll just tell you I don't. But you're not restricted to any specific topic or thing as long as it's just overall industry related. I'm happy to talk about it. And like again, we're here to do a Q&A and me to provide that feedback to you, right? And get to just sit down and have that conversation. So please utilize it accordingly. So getting into this one, for somebody that's trying to learn chillers, what tools, resources would you recommend for somebody? Yes, okay. Learn chillers. So let me get this spooled up here. 1 second. All right. For somebody that is trying to learn about chillers, what tools, resources would you recommend for somebody that is beginning to learn about them? Um, so this is actively the problem that I'm trying to solve. One of the big things I'd really recommend is my goal here is not to pitch myself, but I genuinely like this is what I'm trying to solve, literally. So, like, I have a free training at chilleracademy.com. Okay, I have a free course, and that is really where I recommend you start. Like, if you're in the industry, you're interested in chillers, you want to learn more about them, you're not really sure just about the topic as a whole, you just want to get familiar with it. I've got an entire free course that has a tremendous amount of resources in it that you can um, go into and fully just you get a feel for it. I take you on a ton of my service calls that I went on over the years. I've got a lot of training and stuff in there that I've covered. It really gives you a strong representation of just what you can expect. Like, what do you expect life to look like on a routine basis, serving as working on chillers as an HVAC technician? Like, that is what that is showing you, right? And it's a great starting point. You're going to see a lot of the tools and equipment that I was using at the time, and you're going to see that equipment kind of evolve as I move through different phases of my own career. I mean, I documented 7 years of stuff, and that is all in that course, right? Now, if you're already to a point where you're ready to start legit learning chillers and going in that direction, that's where I recommend like my introduction course or the online certification course. So in that online course, that's where I truly take you step by step in a very structured way. At the very end of that course, I do actually give you a list of like tools, equipment, a whole slew of just this is what kind of a starter kit is for somebody that's going to do routine chiller service of any kind. Um, so I would just heavily encourage you to go consider uh, that path, right? And just that's going to be a huge resource to help you get started. Another good resource is going to be the Chiller Guys Hub. So that's going to be John Klimmer. So that's chillerguyshub.com, I believe, is their web address. Either way, if you just look up Chiller Guys Hub, that's another great resource, and it's more of a community focused approach. They do have some like internal training that they do. They provide a lot of resources. You can ask questions to other industry professionals, right? So it's another great resource to get plugged in, but from a community perspective, right? So their big focus is like building and developing an internal community that technicians can come to and speak openly at. Whereas, like, my approach is I'm trying to give you a structured training path that you can follow at your own pace and learn through to just get from square one to sufficient or proficient, should be a better way to say that. Uh, Beyond that, so it the where this question becomes trickier to answer is it's going to depend on where you are at in your career, how much training you've already had. Are you just strictly working residential and you're trying to get into more of the chiller side? Are you already doing heavy commercial and you're familiar with commercial properties and hydronic systems, but you just haven't gotten involved on the chiller side of it yet? Um, that's going to have a huge impact on the tools that you already have, where you should kind of go, what you should start investing in. There's, yeah, from there, like, there's not a straightforward, um, there's not a straightforward path as to like what's your best next steps, because it is so dependent on kind of where you currently are. You're more than welcome to give me some more details into the chat, and I can try to tailor that a little more. I'm not trying to just kind of give you a fluff answer there. It's just I can spend a long time kind of talking about each stage of that, but I do want to be more specific to your actual question and what's going to help you in the moment. So I can always circle back and kind of give some more feedback to this. If you care to basically just share where you are at in your career, like what you're currently working on. Do you get to see large hydronic equipment at all? Kind of where your tools are already at. Okay, here we go. So I graduated high school not too long ago. Awesome. Uh, 1 year of plumbing and 3 months of sheet metal HVAC here in Kansas City. However, I believe my local union does chiller service. Yeah, I would be willing to guarantee that it does. And it would just be a matter of getting into a company or a team that has that. So basically, um, yeah. So you're in the Have you actually gone through an HVAC program? And because they have like the apprenticeship and stuff, right? So with that, you can actually learn HVAC fundamentals all the way up. And to have you gone through that kind of training? Have you been through any kind of a trade school at all? Because you said you've done a year of plumbing and you're 3 months into doing sheet metal, which is a great experience, but have you learned like refrigerant practices? Have you gotten to the point of getting your EPA 608? It's okay if you don't know like the terms I'm using. It's just this there are paths for you. Okay, I need a little more as to exactly where you're at. Historically, uh, most unions are do have a very a strong like heavy commercial side. I've received my EPA Type 2 and Universal through SkillCat. Awesome. Okay, so you've got SkillCat. All right. What I would recommend for you from here. So something to some perspective real quick, potential options that you have. Getting into the chiller side is the top end of this industry, and I there's a big foundation that we really got to build in order, because what I want is I want you to be successful. And if you try to dive too deep too soon into that, that could make it really challenging for a long time in your career. And I'm somebody that speaks from experience here, so understand my perspective is like my first 2 years in this industry was no trade school. I came in, worked up under a fella for a year, spent a year out from under him doing other stuff, mostly residential, commercial, light commercial, and I did not know proper subcooling. I did not know superheat. I didn't know what to do with those. I couldn't do proper capacitor tests. And so when the capacitor was having an issue, while yes, I technically could put my meter to the capacitor, I didn't fully understand what was happening. And I very much operated as like a parts changer for that first kind of quite a bit, because I didn't have enough training or experience or anything. I was taught, two smokes vacuum and beer can cold charging. Like I'm dead serious. Like that was my upbringing at that time. Um, so it was in that process that I realized, having started to work with some guys who did have training, just how bad mine was. I'll say it that way. So that's what encouraged me to actually get into trade school. Now, once I got into trade school and I got into a really good HVAC program, began to learn the fundamentals, that actually got me an opportunity to get into the heavy side. And so I took it and I've never looked back ever since. I finished out, got I personally got my associate's degree because I went to a junior college. You don't have to go that far, right? It's absolutely not necessary. Even if you just got a certificate from a proper trade school. Now, being the fact that you're in the union, like you have a lot more options available to you, and that's a good thing. So I did not come up the union path, but from what I've learned of the union path of this, you do have the apprenticeship program, and my understanding is like that apprenticeship does start at the like base fundamental levels. Like that's where you want to start now, and you're going to learn a lot about the being a technician in this industry, and the level of technical skill you're going to need to have. You're going to learn so much about it by going through that process, and you really, really need that technical depth. Now, if you're aside from the union path, another one that I'd highly recommend is AC Service Tech LLC on YouTube, and his website says Craig Migliaccio. Absolutely phenomenal, and is a great instructor, wonderful person. I consider Craig a really dear friend, and he's got an online platform that he's made where he can teach you a lot of this stuff. So even if you wanted to start with his fundamentals on how all these things work, and then tried to go the union apprenticeship path, like that's a direction I would really press for right now where you are today. Try your best to go that direction. Either of those paths, both of those paths, whatever actually works for you. Get that foundation under you, and then as you begin to see how this industry works as a whole, you can start moving deeper into the hydronics and chiller side, and it's going to be so much easier to understand if you can do it that way. Um, Like what we're working on the chiller side is really really advanced stuff, and it's not easy to learn for somebody who's had all that extra training. And I don't want this to discourage you. I just want you to have some perspective and maybe a good direction to try to go in. Um, yeah, yeah, that's what I learned service with Craig's books. Awesome. When I was first transitioned from commercial sheet metal to service. Yes, eggs. Okay, awesome. So you're already on that track. Or I'm sorry, that was a different fella. I'm sorry. Yeah, what Jared said there, he he's spot on. And here's the thing to keep in mind: you don't have to go residential route, right? Not like I did. There are pathways, especially being the fact that you're already in the union. There are pathways to just go straight into the commercial side. If you can, and you're into working on big heavy stuff, and like that's your route, do it. Like if you're really into mechanical stuff, if you like, I don't want to give too many examples. I like to use the automotive thing, but I get that's very specific. Not everybody is into cars. You don't have to be into cars to be into what else we do. It's just for us who are into cars are also really into this stuff. Anyway, um, you you can go the commercial path. Is my point. You don't have to run all the residential or light commercial and all. Just you don't have to do that. You don't. You follow with the right people and ask the right questions and take your time and really press for that heavy side, which is where chillers are. So chillers exist in the heavy commercial industrial space, right? So the segments, maybe that'll help real quick. Let's actually just talk about the segments that the industry has real quick. So we have residential, we got our resis. From there, we've got light commercial. Then we go into heavy commercial. Now, all of this is just comfort cooling side, okay? Then we have industrial. Now, over here, we have the refrigerant world, the low temp world, where we could have, you could go into doing like restaurants. So, again, you have a light commercial, and they have their own kind of heavy commercial, as I'd call it. These are usually like your rack guys. So if you're working on rack systems, I would kind of classify them as more of the heavy side of doing the refrigerant or refrigeration. Okay, so this is technically more of the AC, the air conditioning side of it, even though by the time we start getting into heavy and industrial level, like those AC to refrigeration lines really start getting blurred because we get into so much like process cooling. Again, don't worry about terms here. Just understand the core concept. So these are the kind of the paths you have. This isn't restricted to just this. This is just kind of a high level idea. So you can skip this altogether and go straight to heavy commercial if you get the right opportunities, and that's the path I really would encourage you to try to go. There's a huge amount of opportunity right now. It's just not easy to get started. That's the thing. It's not easy to get started. Getting your foot in the door is going to take some work. So, yeah, that's my overall answer there. Yeah, the question about the academy, I don't understand what you're asking there, Bubba. The natural lioness is my wife. She does run as the ops manager for the academy here. So maybe if you can kind of clarify what you're referencing. All right, moving on. Oh, what do you recommend? Yeah, this is a great. So we'll circle back. Let's kind of keep on this thread. I will. I will. I'm technically skipping somebody, but I'll come back around. Just give me 1 second. Okay. What do you recommend for getting the foot in the door? Just rack experience. Um, so I would say if you you've indicated that you're interested in doing the chiller side of it. So if you're interested in the chiller side, that's your long-term goal, then really press for the heavy commercial air conditioning side of it. If you're trying to go like the rack route and the low temp side of the industry for refrigeration and process cooling, um, that's kind of a whole nother subcategory, right? And that's where somebody like Trevor Matthews would come in with Refrigeration Mentor. Another great resource if you're interested in that path. If you don't know anything about it, like I would heavily encourage you. Like Trevor has a ton of great resources out there. So like feel free, go research some of what Trevor's doing and you'll get a strong feel for what the low temp, the rack side of the industry can look like. There's also um, supermarket refrigeration. I forget his full channel name. I don't know the guy's actual name, but he's got a bunch of like he's a rack technician, and he's posted a lot of service content around doing rack service. So like go look at some of their stuff. You've also got all my stuff for the chiller side, and to show you like what does chiller service look like on a routine basis. Um, Another one that you could reference. So there's actually two others. You could look at uh, Jason Johnson with he just changed his channel name. It's Commercial HVAC or HVAC Commercial. I forget what Jason Johnson. He just changed his channel name not that long ago, and I'm still trying to memorize it. But he's another great resource. Another one would be Subcool HVAC. That'd be another great resource for you. So my point here is, first of all, getting a good feel for what direction you really want, what interests you, like what videos when you sit down and watch them, do you actually feel like yourself drawn to? Do you really enjoy the rack content more? Do you enjoy the more heavy commercial and chiller content? Like, where's that interest at? Now, from there, it does come back to being able to whether it be through the union or just with a company, finding you got to do a lot of applications and you've got to be able to show some competency. Now what I mean by that is that you you know how this industry works. Just having your EPA 608 is not going to be enough alone to get your foot in the door for a lot of companies if you want to grow within the industry, right? It's not going to be quite enough. You're going to have uh, some deeper training and knowledge there as to recovery, charging, refrigerant analysis, electrical troubleshooting, how to use a meter, a lot of those basic things, which Craig, okay, so this is where Craig with AC Service Tech LLC, he teaches all that stuff from a basics level, all of that stuff. So I'd highly encourage, like, use that, go through his stuff. He's going to give you a lot of the resources and the information you need to then be able to go and show yourself to be credible when you try to apply. There's not really this gee whiz bang way of getting in. It's just you've got to get out there and try to show yourself as somebody that they want to have on their team. Now be careful. Be careful, because something that can happen is if you come in with not enough understanding of how things work, they may try to steer you into the construction and projects side of their team, not the service side. All right, so every company, or a lot of the big companies, are going to have divisions within their company. You've got your service team and you've got your construction or projects team. It's sad, but it happens. If your interest is service, but you get pulled into the construction and projects end of it, it can be really hard to actually get the training you're looking for and to pull yourself back over to the service. These two, that you're talking about, two very different roles, very different roles. So if service is your goal, you really have to fight for that direction. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind here. I have seen this done successfully many times. If those project or construction roles are the only thing you can get in, a role in that, or the what you're wanting to achieve in that direction would be something like a startup position. Let me come in and work with your startup team. That is kind of the best sweet spot. And if you can do that, that's going to give you the closest thing to service experience that you're probably going to get on that side of it. Because it really is, like, a lot of times it's pretty common. Companies may use their service team as their startup team. That's a very, very common thing to have. Anyway, if you can do that, it's pretty rare that that company will ever let you transition internally. But what you can do is, if you can get yourself proficient and doing really, really well in that, say, startup role, then you can go shopping for another company that will give you an opportunity in service. You're talking a lot of time in learning, getting an education, getting the hands-on experience. There's a lot of, it's going to take several years to really build all this up if you're starting from where I believe you are, right? From what I've understood of the conversation so far, like, where you are to where you're looking to be, it's going to take some time. So don't get impatient, please. Don't be impatient. Follow through the process. All of us who got where you're looking to be, this is the process every one of us had to go through. It's not just you, and you're not being, as much as it's going to feel like it many times, you're probably not being picked on. It's just hard to get where we are. So be patient, see it through. And that's where, like, finding a good community. That's where, I talked about it before, but the Chiller Guys Hub, you can get feedback and talk to others who are on a similar trajectory and path as you. And sometimes just hearing somebody else share that experience, and you're just having a rough time, rough day, whatever the case, it can help. It can make a big difference. So I would encourage, seek that out. All right. Okay. Okay. So this is a very similar but different question. Okay. Any tips for a new tech out of trade school going into commercial service? You go into your interview genuinely prepared. Yeah, like, and I mean from the fundamentals themselves. A lot of companies may even have an actual test they want you to take, an aptitude test. Yeah, it study, especially on the electrical side. So they're going to challenge you on the refrigerant side. They're going to challenge you on the electrical side. Different companies have all kinds of different ways that they go about trying to vet people out, especially newer people. There's been some cases where they'll literally take you out to a machine and, like, show us that you can work your way around this and navigate it, and that's going to be part of their vetting process. And just, it's not that you have to do everything perfectly. It just showed you have the aptitude to even try, right? That's some of the things that they're looking for. Just do you have the ability to try and to work your way through it? Or do you just get it barely into the process, get overwhelmed, and then just give up and like you're already ready to call for support in some way or ask questions? Like, they're looking for people who can really stand on their own 2 feet and find their way forward. That's what we really need right now. So it's something to understand just from a company perspective. We don't have enough experienced people in the trade right now. And those of us who are experienced are stretched so thin. Our ability to train somebody is so limited in the field, right? Because that's how people were taught for decades. You learned in the field a lot of what you needed to know. There's just not enough capacity to do that successfully. We've got to have people who can come in, who have the basic fundamentals, who can show that they understand how to turn a meter on, and they can do some just even just the basic troubleshooting, basic schematics, right? And then they're willing to be like self-sufficient. You're willing to fight through a hard call and find your way through it without having to have somebody like answer half of the call for you, right? And I don't mean that to sound harsh in any way. I am just trying to communicate the real expectations that's going to help you be successful, right? If you can understand this and appreciate it and go into your interviews with this mentality in mind, understanding the position the person vetting you is in, it's going to do so much for you to help you communicate why you're the best choice for them. And that you're willing to get out there to learn, to do the research, show that you can find your resources. I mean, hell, the fact that you're on this stream right now is a great step forward, a huge step forward, because what are you doing? You're out there on your own, pressing your way forward, trying to figure this out. And I'm telling you, there's not enough people who are capable or willing to do that. And it's a huge part of the issues a lot of companies have. So, be prepared going into your interview. Don't oversell yourself. Don't pretend that you can do more than you can. And if they ask you something that you don't know, just tell them you don't know. It doesn't mean you can't try to answer as best you can. But tell them up front that, hey, I don't actually know, but based on what you said, it sounds like this. Is that right? That's what they need from young technicians right now. They need the open, humble honesty. Open, humble honesty. If you can show that in your interviews, you will have far more opportunities at your doorstep. It's not easy. And they're not going to be easy on you. And I said this in a previous response, like, be careful if you want to be a service technician and service is your goal. Be careful of them shifting you and stand your ground on, no, I want to work in service. Because if you get stuck in projects and construction, it's not that it won't happen, but the chances of you, especially in that company, like in their team, of you getting to move to service is slim. And it's just from pure experience. I've seen that everywhere. So, yeah. Hopefully that's a sufficient answer. I'm happy to provide more. But if I was to rewind the clock and walk into one of those interviews today, that's what I would tell myself now in today's current market and situation. That's what I would tell myself. Go do that. Study up, know your stuff, understand terminology, understand schematics and diagrams as best you can. Um, just know the basics. Know the basics. Trade school isn't just a a a place to um, oh, okay. So I just saw your post. You already got the job. You wanted to see tips for starting and hit the ground running. All right. That's a whole nother pivot to the conversation. Well, either way, V2 of this answer. You've got the sorry. Uh yeah, sorry. V2 of this answer. Let me dive into that and we'll go from there. So yeah, you've got the job. The big things you're going to want to focus on is getting your tools figured out and getting like finding your way around how commercial buildings function and work is going to be a big deal, right? Learning how to like most commercial buildings have a fairly similar structure, and so you're with JCI. Okay, that gives me a lot of great direction there. So JCI does have like they've got a pretty good support side of it and what you're going to be working on. So at least from an internal perspective, uh, understanding commercial buildings and how to communicate with a commercial customer. One of the big things to realize, you're working with a facilities team instead of say ownership or the tenant directly. So and a lot of those facilities companies, they don't want you communicating directly with the tenant. They want to be the middleman. Just understand that's just part of the culture of that environment from my experience. Um, with your tools, so having a quality meter and yeah, having a quality meter and quality hand tools is going to be a big start. Okay. I will tell you, don't fall into a trap to think you have to have the most expensive top notch of all your tools, because then you end up buying very little tools early on because you're trying to buy honestly what would be the proper tool. Don't get me wrong, it would be the proper tool, but it's really expensive. What I actually recommend in your position is get the more affordable basic stuff, but you can get more tools for the dollar and get more, just have more tools, socket sets, straps, ratchets, pipe wrenches of various sizes, 18 inch, 24 inch, um, having a really good impact drill. The drill one is one I would probably invest a little more in than maybe you could some of the others. It's okay to start off with some just inexpensive sets early on. Um, let's see. Having something like, in addition to your regular meter, having like a good megger on hand, having a good enough psychrometer. So my point is, if you start off with the more affordable options with the tools and such, what I like to recommend, and this is actually what I did. Nobody told me to do this, but I just ended up figuring it out on my own that way. Most of those tools are going to get you far enough, and it's going to get you into those higher pay scale brackets, because with what we do, if when you have tools, so a tool is better than no tool in my opinion. Okay, something is better than nothing, and you're going to find lots of situations where you just need something, just something. Because if you had that thing, that swivel joint, that particular puller, the claw hook, like whatever the case may be. If you just had that one particular thing in this particular moment, you could just knock this job out super fast instead of having to figure out how to finagle your way around it because you don't have just the good enough tool. Then as you improve and your pay scale increases because you're able to work on so much more because you just have tools, period, despite the quality, then you can buy the nicer, more expensive stuff and replace all the inexpensive, mediocre tools that you had to buy up front. That's a huge strategy that and I heavily recommend a lot of your paycheck. I say a lot of it, okay, within reason. You still got to live, okay, first of all, but whatever free cash you have, I highly recommend put something every single paycheck. Buy a tool, or if you need to save up to get something larger, just try to make that habit. And the reason I say this now is I'm telling you, like the from a commercial standpoint, the volume of tools we need is huge. So if you can just do this bit by bit over time, but when you get to the point where you're operating at a high level, you're going to have such an incredible loadout versus if you don't do this, when you get to those higher levels, when you're going to need all that, it's just going to be harder to get there because you're not making the investment in the first place. I guess that's where I'm coming from. You're going to have a hard time advancing yourself because you're not investing. Jason Johnson here in the chat is a prime example of somebody who I view as had done this process. Like he was always constantly buying just with every paycheck. Obviously he still had to live, but he was just buying bit by bit by bit by bit. Now he's got a really freaking incredible loadout. He's doing a lot of really cool work with Daikin. Just saying. Jason is an example of exactly what I'm talking about. So, yeah, tools. I'm going to hit on tools a lot. Learning to navigate commercial customers because they are different. Tools. And I would just say read a lot of IOMs. Like it's kind of a answer, honestly, but dive into the IOMs, man. Read. Yeah. Now here's something I will tell you about IOMs. Actually, do I have... We'll use this one. Okay, here's something about IOMs to understand. So when I say this, install, operations, and maintenance, right? So you're with JCI, so you're going to see a lot of this York stuff. A whole lot of this manual is just a whole lot of unit specs, voltages, classifications, distances, right? So it's just a lot of not so useful information for us as a service tech. If you're doing installs, yes. But if you kind of skip, and we can go to the index here, I guess. So let's look at it from the table of contents. All right, so we got nomenclature, limitations, physical data, dimensions, electrical data, which is not electrical troubleshooting. Okay. The components could be useful, compressor components. Now we're starting to get into some interesting things. Now weight distributions, distribution. Again, that's not going to help us on a service call. Unit controls and operations. So my point I'm making here is you see this, and I know it's kind of, maybe that'll help. You don't have to read this whole thing. Obviously this looks like a big ass massive scary thing, and it is, to be frank. It's a lot of information here, but when I say read the IOM, I'm not literally saying read this entire effing thing. Okay, that's not what I'm trying to tell you. What I'm trying to tell you is get in here and find the actual service information that is useful for the operations and the maintenance specifically. That's what I would say dive into. So when you sit down and you go to read a manual, go to the table of contents or the index, and like, this is what I'm looking for. All the display and status keys. To be frank, I don't really care about all that. What I want to see is, okay, so system startup or operation sequence, all right there at the very end. That'd be a great place to read. Troubleshooting. That could be a nice place. Now, troubleshooting, you're probably not going to read that all the way through. What you might do is just skim and see what's there, and maybe something interests you. And then, like, up here on the compressor components, getting familiar with how this machine is laid out, for example, or unit controls and operation. That can be useful to understand how to use the interface. So get these IOMs and dive into them, read them, get yourself as familiar as you can. If you can do that, plus build your tools, and just keep your head in the sand and keep plugging away, you will be successful in this industry. If you can do those things, you will be successful. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Plan to build experience with sheet metal. Switch back to the line crew of the company I work for. Yeah. I have 1 year of plumbing. I plan to shoot for 6 months of sheet metal and another 6 for the basic troubleshooting, charging, brazing lines, etc. Afterwards, going for the union. Yeah. There you go, man. How you doing, Jason? Good to see you, bud. I was actually recommending your channel earlier. I keep forgetting it's JJ Commercial HVAC. I was trying to remember what your new channel name was, and you weren't here in the chat, so I didn't have a direct reference. There he is, guys. Go click on him. Yeah. I'm experimenting with the. I mean, we had some circumstances. We had some shipments and stuff coming in, and it was all showing up like during what would have been the normal stream time, so it just wasn't going to work today. So I decided to do an evening stream, but this has been something that comes up frequently. So we're just kind of, we had a legit reason, but TBD on if we do this more often or not. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I agree. The facilities team is always way more preferable over trying to deal with the tenant directly. The tenant, just, that rarely goes well. Yeah, from Jason, it takes many years to get the tools you need to be able to perform 95% of the work you will do. Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, well, and that's the thing. So, like, my wife's talking about, how much I read manuals. I legit did. When we sat down on the couch in the evenings, or like, every book I could find, I was reading it. In terms of manuals, all the IOMs I could get my hands on, I was reading them. But I'm a nerd into this anyway, right? So I'm an extreme of what I'm describing. I'm not saying you got to be as extreme as I am. I enjoy this stuff. Like, enjoy it. It's like, people get into fan fiction or fiction novels, whatever the case. I don't really care. I'm not into that stuff. I am into this, right? So yeah. If you just read something, you're already getting ahead. That's my point. Yeah, well, so Jason, here's a great question, Jason. How much would you estimate you have in personal tools, not just company tools, but actual personal tools that you've had to rig out for yourself? I know for me, it's somewhere in the ballpark of like 40, 50 grand worth of stuff, right? Of my personal tools I bought over the decade plus that I've been doing this. And that's what I needed to operate. And I still didn't have everything. Like I didn't invest in everything. There were certain like little specialty things that I never actually purchased. I thought about buying. I never got around to it. Um, and that is separate from the tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff that the company will stock the truck with on their own. Again, for everybody who doesn't know, like keep in mind, I'm coming at this from a non-union perspective. So us non-union guys, we don't have tools and equipment provided for us. I know a lot of unions. That's a huge benefit. You get all those tool loadouts provided for you. Um, but with that, you don't always get all the tools too, right? So there is some kind of give and go there. Y'all binge some of the 3-ish-year-old videos of the channel. Oh yeah, yeah, we do. I mean, we've talked about all kinds of stuff over time. That was a fun season though, kind of hitting all those and like doing that. That Amazon video was fun. That was a fun one. Yeah, see Jason, he's in that same ballpark, and that's a true like even working with a lot of senior guys, it is very common. 40 to 50, even 60K in personal tools is very common amongst like experienced guys. Now again, all of us spent a decade building that tools the kit out. It didn't happen overnight. It connects to the pump. I used a tap thread on my recovery machine. I was tinkering in the piece that connects to the pump. What are you working on, Jason? Size without an adapter needed. It looks like. Oh, you're just out in the. Okay. You're out in the garage tinkering now. How do I enter uh, the chiller industry without first working in another HVAC role? All right. Let's talk about it. Something I will put out there. Um, I have done videos discussing like coming from a residential tech perspective, getting into the heavy commercial and chiller side. Um, so I would encourage that's something just look at later. Maybe referencing some of those videos. I also talk about it from a residential light commercial company looking to transition. Anyway, um, so how do I enter the chiller industry without first working in another HVAC role? Well, there are several ways to get into the chiller industry as a whole. Okay, so being a service technician is my specialty. That's my background. That's what a lot of our discussion is going to be built around. That being said, um, like you could get into sales and go like a sales route or stuff like that. There's several options in terms of what you can do is in this side of the industry, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're the one having to put a meter to something and turn a wrench. Okay, now um, a chiller, coming from a service perspective, like you're wanting to get into service, it, a huge thing to keep in mind. We are the top end of the industry in terms of opportunities, the scale, the pay scale, the technical side of it, and what you're going to be getting into. Like getting into the chiller side is the pinnacle of what the industry comes to from the heavy commercial side. So, um, the first thing is how do I enter if you haven't had basic trade school and basic HVAC training, got to start there. Okay. I've answered this actually earlier in this stream a bit, so I'm going to do a little more of an abbreviated answer now. You got to get the fundamental training. Period. You don't have to start over with what am I saying? Not start over. You don't have to go residential, right? You can skip that whole side of the process. Some of us, like I came up in residential first and then moved into heavy side. Uh, Again, you don't have to do that. If you find the right opportunities, you can go straight into the heavy side, but you're going to have the education and the work ethic, and you're going to have to, like, it's going to take some work to accomplish that. The other side of it is if you do go residential or light commercial, it can be difficult to make the transition to the heavy side. Okay. Um, the biggest thing I usually find for guys who did that is they run into a pay scale gap where they got really good, let's say in residential, and in the residential world, you're a phenomenal residential tech working on 5-ton and down split systems, whatever. Like, you do great. The issue is that experience doesn't mean the same thing on the heavy side, because what we do on the heavy side, without sounding arrogant, is just, it's a whole nother level. And our entry level positions for the heavy side many times are less, and even much less than what you may be able to do at a high level position in residential. Now, in the heavy side, our high level roles do way beyond what a high level residential tech can do. But my point being, I've seen guys fall into that trap. Now, you're not saying that. I'm just saying something to be aware of. It's not going to be easy. Get the education, and then you're going to have to try to push your way into working with working with a company who does chiller work. Now, I can also tell you the likelihood you're going to go from brand new to service to getting put inside of a chiller team is probably zero, or damn near close to it. Okay. It's just not the way the industry works. And it's because of the level that we operate at. So if you want to get into chillers and you want to go that direction, you can get into heavy commercial, which is very wrapped up. Like, chillers fit in that heavy commercial category. Okay. But that, what we'll actually end up doing is you'll work on a lot of the other heavy commercial equipment, and eventually you'll build enough experience and trust that you'll get an opportunity with a chiller team that specializes in chiller equipment, and you'll move in more of that direction from there. But I don't know of any examples anywhere at all across the globe where you went from trade school or getting your basic education with no actual experience to then going straight into a chiller role. Okay. Now, you might, if you did facilities, okay, and you did like the facility management side of things, you're almost never actually working on the equipment with something like that, but you might be working in a plant that has that equipment. You might be over a facility that has that equipment. But again, you're not the service technician in almost all circumstances there. You're the one who is monitoring, logging those machines, and then if something does go wrong, you're the one calling the company to have a technician come out. So just understanding some of the different roles that kind of exist. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. See, my thoughts on Knipex, Kipix, Knipix. I do that on purpose because I know there's a big, it's like how to pronounce it. I am gonna butcher it. I've seen their social media post. I think it's Knipix is the or yeah. I think that's how I've seen them say it is Knipix. Anyway, um, far as I can tell, as far as I'm concerned, good, like really good stuff. Um, I don't actually know their pricing, but I've always assumed their pricing was, I mean, comparable to like really good Klein, high, name brand stuff, right? I've assumed that they've had that kind of pricing, to be honest. So, from a tools perspective, yeah, I could get behind them. I don't own any. I have worked with them. Like I've worked with a lot of technicians out in the field, whether it be consulting or otherwise, where they had a whole line out of their stuff, and yeah, I was super happy with how that went, how they felt and functioned, and how they held up. So I've gotten to use them. I'm perfectly happy with the brand. Um, from a pricing standpoint, like again, it gets back to if you have the budget and you're ready to make that kind of investment, awesome. If budget is a concern and if they're priced where I think they are, I would say there's a lot of other better budget options. And then this would be something you would invest into later as your like tool budget got more in alignment um, with their pricing. Okay. Now keep in mind, as I say that out loud, the warranties are awesome and the lifetime warranties are awesome. But there's also some inexpensive tools that aren't going to hurt as bad when they, because not if a tool breaks, tools are going to break, period. Okay. Um, Now, if you, depending on how you use your tool, will decide on how soon it breaks compared to others. But like stuff's going to happen, right? Life is going to happen. Um, I've tore up many screwdrivers not because I broke the thing directly, is I accidentally got too close to something, shorted it, and then just like seared the whole handle in half. But life's gonna happen. So, uh, sorry, I just had some flashbacks of some very fun moments. Point is, the warranties are great, but they're not like even cheap tools can have good warranties as well. Make sure just if you're doing that, it's within budget. Don't don't sacrifice your budget. Damn, Jason, you're on 28 years. I do forget about that. Because we first met, you I mean heck, you were what? Dang, Jason, how long has it been? You were 20, 22 years, 23 years, something like that. I mean, hell, we've been working together. What was that? 2020? 2021? 2022? It was 21 or 22 you came on board. I would actually forget which one now. Yeah, just joined. Is reading IOMs the best way to learn besides hands-on? I mean, uh other than like what I've put together. The short answer is yes. Other than hands-on, reading IOMs is one of the best ways to learn moving forward. Now, there are those of us who have put together resources to try to make this easier. ChillerAcademy.com, from the chiller perspective, is what I've worked on to try to solve this problem, to make it easier so that you're more prepared for the hands-on. If you've spent any time reading an IOM, you realize that it can be really difficult to follow and understand just what the heck they're talking about in the IOM. So that's where those of us who have put resources together, it's there to help you understand the material better. And it doesn't help when different manufacturers use different terms and describe the same thing but in different ways. So it sounds different, but it's really not, right? I've got all kinds of examples for that. So Um, it I heavily encourage like watching the service call videos here on YouTube and stuff across various channels. All right, it's really going to help you just visualize and see and improve your learning. And if you combine like getting to watch other people do it with reading IOMs about that thing and then eventually applying that to the hands-on, that's a great step forward. Yeah, 40 to 50K seems excessive on the tools. I mean, uh it's I mean, well, again, if you're coming from a non-union perspective or from a union perspective, yes. When I talk to union guys who get tools provided and they find out we have to supply a lot of our own stuff and it's only specific specialty tools that the shop will provide for us. Yeah, it seems it's astronomical number. 100% agree. Like it's a lot. But it's the truth. Like it's the reality. That is what it again over the course of a career. And it depends on how far you go. Okay, so you can keep this in mind too. If you're working on the smaller end of the heavy commercial side, you could actually probably get away with 10, 20K worth of tools. To be frank, like if you're dealing with 50 tons and under, you probably you 10 to 20K of personal tools if you're non-union. That's all you're ever going to need. When you start hitting equipment that's above 50, pushing 100 tons and up, the scale of the tools, the volume of the tools we need to function at that level, it just goes exponential. And then that's where the 40, 50K in personal tools hits the desk, right? So just, yeah. Oh, you said you'll send me a pic. Did you send me one? Oh, we do have a picture. Let's take a look. What did you send me? What the heck is that? Here, let me look at this real quick. Oh, I see the manifold now. So you took the manifold. What are you? Are you trying to create a manifold for your machine? Yeah, are you like trying to create like an input manifold to expand the ports? What are you trying to do there, Jason? You got my attention. I'm curious, bud. Let's see. Appreciate the support, guys. Yeah, IOMs are great to start out. I would say learn the fundamentals of flow, fluid dynamics, thermodynamics. Yeah, 100%. If you don't know what those terms really mean, that's okay. That's part of just start somewhere, right? Start with honestly thermodynamics. Like if you're not confident with that term, start there. Just put that into Google, and that's a great way that I highly encourage everybody to try to study. Just pick something. I honestly don't care what. Just pick something that's industry related. Start reading. When you come across a word you don't know, stop, go learn that word. Many times what you'll find is that word will then have other terms tied to it. And if you just keep this whole process going, you'll start to like really begin to break the true like simple basics of each term and how it all kind of plays back. And then like, it creates this whole flow of learning, if you will. Uh, so yeah, if you don't know where to start, that's okay. When you see a term you don't know, go learn that term. And as you see more terms you don't know, go learn those terms. And eventually it all will start to come together, given enough time, if you truly put the effort in. I agree that 40 50K is excessive. I don't think it takes that much for most guys to get a good working service toolkit going. That figure is the guy who has every tool for everything. Yeah. So I definitely, yeah, I think Lisa jumped in with not having a tool for everything. No, the guy that has, so I've worked with those guys. The guys that have a tool for literally everything, they're pushing more. That's the 60 to 80K guys, genuinely. Um, but again, the tonnage, the scale of what you're working on plays huge into this. And I'm not saying you need that kind of loadout to do basic service work. Okay. Again, that's where that, like, your daily routine service calls are probably going to be restricted to tools that are only like 10K in total value on a weekly basis. But there's going to be lots of other work and lots of other calls that come along that your ability to do a good quality job on that particular job, on that repair, is going to be dictated on the tools you have available to you. And are you going to have to try to rig something to get this to work correctly and get it in, get it out? Or are you going to actually have proper equipment to safely and quickly remove, reinstall, and move on? And that's the difference in a guy that can do the job in an hour, or he's going to take majority of the day. And I'm being like, I don't mean to sound dramatic, but I am being serious. Like, that is the difference of what those tools can make. So again, you're not going to do that 40 to 60K within a short period of time. Like, these are things you're going to accumulate. So like me being 13, 14 years into this, and Jason being 28 years in, like, that's where these numbers are coming from. It took us a decade plus to build these toolkits out. And there's still more stuff we could buy. That's what we're saying. Like, there's more stuff we could have. We don't have everything. Yeah, we could have 80K worth of tools in our truck, and then we'd probably have everything. So not trying to be dramatic, right? Not trying to be dramatic, but I am being realistic in what it actually takes to do, maybe by my standard of like high-end work, okay? What I consider high-end work. That's what all of us who function at that level, that's what we've got invested. There's absolutely ways to do that cheaper. 100% agree with that. See, I've been doing supermarkets for 2 years, but I think I'd rather go the chiller route. Yeah, I mean, there's absolute avenues for that, and I'll tell you, you have a huge leg up already having been in the supermarket side. You're already familiar with commercial facilities and working with commercial teams and just what that whole aspect looks like in general. And just being able to work your way through like a large commercial site. You're doing rack systems, you're familiar with that. And then a lot of the terminology and being able to rig equipment, a lot of the mechanical side of it. Like, you've got so many things that you're already up to speed on, advanced control processes, more advanced refrigeration theory, getting into like suction pressure control. Like, there's just so much that you already know. It's just a matter of reformatting or translating what you've learned on the rack side into what we're doing on the heavy commercial side, which is larger tonnage, right? A lot of times we're doing very similar things. We're using a lot of very similar controls, just different packaging, and like, we're not trying to do low temp process. Many times we're just doing air conditioning. Okay, we're just processing air for comfort often enough, right? Obviously, chillers gets into process cooling, like we have all of that. Yes, yes, yes. But you've got a strong start. You just need the fundamentals of chillers and heavy commercial equipment in general, and then translating that into working with a company who's willing to give you a chance to make that transition. Yeah, everyone has their own ideas of what excessive. Yeah. I can tell you it's extremely rare that I need something I don't already have. I don't like not having what I need, so I buy tools. Yeah. I mean, it's 100%. That's a great way to say it. And I've been on that side of it where we're trying to use what's technically the wrong tools and we're struggling, and we sit there for a long time struggling and eventually get it to work, um, even if unconventionally. And it's just not fun. Like, there's just nothing fun about that process. And especially when you know that there are tools that exist that would make this actually a pretty simple process. That's my thoughts on it. I feel like the best to learn RTUs and split systems before you try to go into chillers. 100%. Learn refrigerant system diagnostics and good electrical troubleshooting first. Absolutely 100% agree with Jared, right? And that is one of my like approaches that I took with my certification course specifically. Like, my goal was to help you get from RTU, heavy commercial RTU level technician work, fully up to speed on chiller systems, right? But obviously, there is that idea of like, I'd rather you learn all that RTU stuff. I'd rather you get fully familiar and up to speed with how commercial systems function as a whole, and yada 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 yada, and then try to get into chillers. It'll be such an easier transition for you. If you try to go hardcore into chillers too quickly without that extra background, it does make it really, really challenging. It can be done. Don't get me wrong. People do it. I've got lots of examples of people that have done it. It's just, it's an uphill fight. Let's see. The fundamentals may be simple, but how many people forget them and get blinders on and miss the big picture and may chase their tail and miss the fundamentals which solve many problems. 100%. That's just where like experience and like the structure of how we troubleshoot something, like there is a natural flow that all of us kind of fall into, but that comes from training, right? The more quality of a training you receive, um, the better that flow and that structure should be present. So when you find yourself in a spot where you just go too big, too far, too fast, and you don't verify the basics first, right? That's as draw that back. Draw it back. Start with the fundamentals always. Start with the basics always, right? That's how I keep myself in check. Okay, when I'm doing any kind of a review, diagnostics, service calls, anything of that nature, I want to start with the basics. What are my basic readings? What is the basic data? Let's just start from square one, then work our way up from there. And it's where like it's very easy when we're on a service call, we see an alarm pop up and we just want to go straight to troubleshooting that alarm, like at the alarm level. Let's say it's a particular sensor or something, who knows? Versus, okay, we see the alarm, maybe we do just a quick visual check on something, but other than that, like, okay, let's stop there, let's back it up, and let's work through this properly from the beginning. That way we don't accidentally miss something, and that alarm is very likely just a symptom of a different problem. But if we go straight for the kill on that alarm, we could miss the actual problem that is making that the alarm thing a symptom of it. Just saying. Do you work with BAS technicians, or do you do BAS work? Yes to both. Yes to both. Now, I have limitations. I don't have the same level of background on automation that I do like with the mechanical service side. But I am like, whether it be tritium, whether it be uh, Metasys, right? Pick one. I've worked with a lot of them. I understand the back end logic. I can read and follow logic trees. Um, anyway, so to answer the question is yes to both. Yeah, Jason's point was Nipix is great, but maybe overkill for the beginning if you're on a budget. I know how to understand and use the tools. Yeah, that's good. That's a big part of a lot of it. It's just getting our head around how everything works. How can I access this course from Nigeria? Yeah, yeah. We should. Yeah, we're in Nigeria. You can always send me an email, and but you should if you go to chilleracademy.com, you should have access to it. Like you should be able to see everything and get enrolled from there. As far as I know, pretty confident we have others from Nigeria in the academy as well. So as far as I know, you should be able to get access to everything. So I don't have to use an adapter for my recovery machine. I can use any size hose that have multiple connectors on the machine coming back. Oh, I got you. Okay. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. So you're just trying to build a header to function as like a larger scale adapter, depending on what size. Okay. I'm tracking with you. Do you travel frequently? Yeah, Lisa jumped in there on that. Not as much, but if you're lots of travel opportunities. Yeah. So the travel thing and the chiller world it really depends on what side of the industry, just kind of what you get into. I personally intentionally, um, here, let me throw this up so everybody can see it. Okay. I've kind of blown through a lot of the chat without really following my structure here. So let me just get this one up for everybody. Okay. So do you travel frequently? It really depends on the like just the role you go into within this industry to service chiller equipment. Okay. I personally stayed on the more local side intentionally. I did not want to have to travel a ton. For me, family focus, being able to be home every night, that whole bit, like that was always important to me. But there are lots of roles in this industry that you do get to travel, whether it be nationally, internationally, and it's not always just with the OEMs, right? But there are teams within the OEM manufacturers. They travel internationally doing OEM service. There are companies who service internationally. Technically, I consult internationally. I've done this many times. I've almost taken trips to several countries. You know, this or that happens. It ends up not working out, or we got it resolved without me having to go. Um, so, like, yeah, you can travel if you want to, and there's lots of there's more opportunities not to travel than to travel. But if you are interested in traveling, there's a lot of great opportunities to travel, especially when we start talking about getting into like the data center world right now. So there are a lot of companies that are getting into the data center startup side of it, and they're finding themselves they're going on. They spend a lot of their time working local, but they spend enough time on the road going to various sites doing the work. And like some of these sites, they may be there for weeks or months trying to get the whole site fully online, depending on the scale and just how much everything's actually ready for them. So, yeah, if you're interested in traveling a lot, you can. Like, you can genuinely travel the world doing this. Even if from a, if you are interested in the naval side, like there's a ton of people, a ton of work. I work with several companies up in the northeast that specialize in marine equipment, and they're working on the equipment on the ships. Like ships, a lot of ships use water cooled chillers. Um, that's just a very great effective way. Well, that requires people who specialize in that maritime. So yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do. The chillers, like if you don't know, chillers are absolutely freaking everywhere. everywhere. Like so much of our world runs on chilled water. So, yeah, I didn't take that path on purpose. I've done travel. I've had to do plenty of travel throughout my career. Don't get me wrong. But I purposefully chose roles that meant no travel or little to no travel. So, yeah. See, I do need to own a vibration analyzer. Or do I need to own a vibration? No. But I wanted one so I don't have to use the company pass around. I buy tools so that I'm not reliant on having the company provided tools available. Yeah, and that's fair, right? That's what got me into buying my own service laptops like instead of having to do the whole pass back and forth thing. So again, that's a great example of, is it necessary? No. But to his point, like when the time comes up, I could either spend half my day trying to trace the tool down, like been there, done that plenty of times, or and should the service company have more tools and stuff like that? Maybe, probably. But like that's a very complicated question, right? Or conversation, because from a technician standpoint, well, we got to have the tools. Yes. Yes, but they're like things like budgets do matter. Things like company margins do matter. If you want to have a company at all, like it's just not as simple as it sounds once you actually get on the management side of things and you see the back end of how things actually have to function in order to have a company that lives at all. um, it's just not that simple. Making those investments is a lot. So, yeah, that's where a lot of us do end up buying our own stuff that technically the company could provide, does provide on some level, but it's like a shared tool between the team and everybody's got to pass it around. And that's just, that sucks. But it's not required. Anyway, moving on. What makes a great, I think you meant technician. I'm going to take the approach of you meant technician. Okay. What makes a great technical? Like I said, I'm going to assume technician here. So a great technician has a few attributes or a few characteristics to them. One, you've got a firm understanding. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be an expert, but you have a very firm understanding of how this industry works, how the science works, how the equipment works. And you're very well rounded. You're well rounded within the industry. There are lots of people that I've seen who were extremely deep in a very specific like subject, but they couldn't really go very far outside of that. And it really limited their ability to be effective in the field as a technician. So that's where for me, like having a good route, it's not that you can't specialize in something. Me as an example, specializing in chillers. Yeah. But I am very familiar with and I've got a lot of experience on things way outside of chillers. And that helps me bring that back into the chiller side to improve myself as in my chiller specialty. Okay. So, yeah, well rounded, really good, solid industry foundation knowledge of how this stuff works. Another would be you've got the tools and equipment. You've got good tools and good equipment. You can do a lot of work really well, really effectively. So that's the thing. Can you do the work, first of all? So that's one issue. But then when you can do it, how efficiently can you do it? So what I mean by that is it going to take you an hour or 4 hours? And the technician that can do the same quality, because it's not just about tools, okay? Don't get me wrong. It's not just about tools. It's also about the process you go through, how well you set yourself up to like move through that work. And when you do run into issues that may require unique ways of solving it, how fast can you adapt and how many ways do you know to go about that problem? Okay, so all of that bundles into, do you have the tools and equipment in the first place, and do you know how to very effectively adjust to various circumstances on repairs in general? Okay, so the more that you know that, the more efficient and the faster you can move through the work while maintaining quality. That's the thing. It's not just about speed. It's about the quality of how fast you can go. These two things have to combine. That is what separates great technicians from the everyday mediocre guys. They're quick, but they're good. They've got everything that they need lined out to get it done in just that way. A great technician can also very effectively utilize a team, in my opinion. So the really great techs, I'm not saying they have to be a trainer. I'm not saying they have to bring up an apprentice. But when they are working within a team, they know how to communicate and work around other people. Even if those people aren't great technicians themselves, that's okay. A great technician knows how to communicate and get that person into doing what they are good at, so that the great tech can focus on the thing that the other guy isn't so good at. And together, focusing on each other's strengths, you can really get some stuff done. A great technician can do that, and can do that really well. Great technicians that I've worked with are consistently humble but confident. You're absolutely confident in what you know, what you understand, how to go about doing this thing, but you're humble at the same time. You're willing to be challenged. You're willing to explain yourself. And you're willing to be shown that you were wrong about something, that you missed something. Because it's going to happen. And you don't get upset when it does. You just understand, okay, got it. That was a mistake, or I did miss that, or whatever the case. And you move on and you keep going. So, yeah. What else? They're willing to help others. I would say that that's the other big thing. That's the other big thing that they're capable of doing. The kind of the final thing is they're willing to help others. Again, I'm not saying you have to be good at teaching, but when somebody is going through something, your ability to help them understand how to get through it without just completely wrecking your own job at the same time, like being able to do both. Um, there are limitations to that, don't get me wrong, but great technicians that I've worked with and that I view in that way, they are capable of doing that. So that would be my list. If I had to just give a list of, this is what I would consider qualities of a great technician. Those are the metrics I'm looking for to try to see, do you fit that definition? Really like that question. And my wife is not a fan of me traveling a lot, so I stay local 98% of the time. Prefer it that way. I absolutely agreed. And Lisa came in and was like, Also, traveling doesn't mean you can't be family focused. All about balance. Do what works for you and your family. 100%. 100%. Yeah, Jason, we are getting 538 new chillers under contract in the next 2 years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know one company right now that they've got a team of, I think, like less than a dozen, if I'm not mistaken, or right at a dozen. But with the amount of chillers they're currently bringing online, they legit, like, if they when they work out the math and break out the workload, they need like 40 guys in the next 2 years. That's a lot. A great tech will realize no matter how much you know, there is always more to learn. Amen, brother. All right, I see we're talking about getting together. Let's do that. Yeah, let's wrap this up. I really enjoyed this, guys. Let me know what you think about an evening stream and just if this worked out for you. Really enjoyed the chat tonight. Um, yeah, this is a good time. With that, MTT, make the time for your family, for your spouse, and for your kids. They really need you. This is a tough industry, but we have to make the time. It's not just going to be there, guys. I'll see y'all later. I will be out next week. At least I mentioned. I'll be at fire school in College Station next week. So I'm a volunteer firefighter, by the way, if you don't know. So no stream next week. I do plan to be back the week after. We'll see y'all.